Welcome, everybody. We do have our inspectors on tonight, and I see 3 out of the 4. We are rating today. So we really didn't have that many items that we had specifically to discuss, but we did want to announce that we have upgraded our inspection software. So when you get your text or your phone call from our inspectors, and the way you will connect is totally different. And we're pretty excited about it, and we hope y'all will be too. So I'm going to let Tony, since he's the most trained on it right now, I'm going to let him tell his story.
Well, other than or different than the software we were using before, the builder had to have a client installed on their device. Now it's all web-based, which makes it a lot easier as far as they don't have to have anything really installed. Just follow the instructions, and a text message will go out to them right before the inspection, and when they open the text message, there will be a link. They click on that, and it'll take them right up to the website. They'll have an option to put in their name, and then hit continue, and that's it. They're done. It connects up automatically to us, and we are ready to do our inspection with them.
Do they have to click video and audio or anything on it?
No. Well, I say no, but I saw once or twice that happened to someone's where they did have to click on something, and I don't remember what it was, whether it was their mic, their audio, or something. But as a general rule, no, they don't have to.
Well, I did an inspection with Frank this morning, and he said he couldn't see me. I could see him, but he said he couldn't see me. And so there was a little camera up at the top right that had a line through it, and I just pushed on that, and then it went through. So
Yeah,
in my case, I did.
I was gonna say I've run a test on ours half a dozen times, and that's never come up on ours. So there must have been something with yours where your camera, something about your camera or the permissions for it.
Maybe it's with an iPhone, maybe.
Could be.
I don't know.
I do have an iPhone. So I'm just saying, inspectors, if your people can't see you, or you can't see them, or if you can't hear them, then maybe there's something on their phone, a blocker, or on their smart device, some kind of a block that they would have to enable the video or the audio portion of their phone in order to do it. And they may just have to do it once, and then after that it's done. I don't know.
Yeah, and it probably would give a warning on their phone that they had to do something.
Yeah.
Has any of the builders that are on right now done a inspection with our upgraded inspection software? Is there anybody?
I don't
think so.
All right. The other thing that happened to me this morning, and I don't know whether you guys are experiencing it or not, but when Frank took the pictures, my screen went blank, and it said rendering 1 of 4, and he could still see, and he just could tell me where to move and what to do, but I couldn't see where I was moving to. It was all on his screen until the photographs stopped their rendering. So you might run into some of that.
Do the inspectors have anything they want to discuss about our changes coming in January, or any questions that have came up?
I've got something to talk about if we don't have anything that's on the agenda that's urgent.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
We're working with Colorado in developing standards for tiny houses so that they can be lived in full time. They're putting them under the modular home program, although they're modifying them, so it's not really going to be a modular home. It's going to be a hybrid vehicular home. And so we're basically writing the book on how they're going to be inspected, what standards, codes, whatever they're going to be inspected to. And on the last meeting, there was a discussion of the loft, whether we could use the loft as a built-in bunk bed and not require an egress window in the loft and just put the egress window at the bottom of the stairs or the ladder. And I did a conference call with Tracy and Byron earlier today to discuss that. And what we kind of came up with was they really want some kind of egress in the sleeping loft. They're not happy with considering it a bunk bed, but they would be open to a smaller egress window than the IRC size. Do you guys have any feeling one way or the other what a smaller window than IRC and would? Apparently they do have the authority to modify some of these things, and in order to do that, could and Rich or somebody else that's familiar with IRC, the only way I can see that it could work, because IRC, it says you can interpret, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you can interpret the code, but you can't go less than the code. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct, Robert.
So we couldn't legally say, oh, well, the egress window, we're going to make it smaller in tiny houses. We couldn't really do that. However, we could say, but this is a built-in bunk bed. We can interpret the loft as a built-in bunk bed. And even though in a bunk bed, no egress is required, we're going to require a 24 by 36. I'm just throwing a number out there, guys, or a 36 by 24 egress window instead of your normal 5.7 square foot window. Would that fly in a jurisdiction?
I don't know. I guess that would be up to the jurisdiction, though.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we maintain our 5.7 square feet, the only area that I could see viable to place a window like that size is if the tiny house had stairs and the tiny house landing itself, the window was placed at the landing. Because that, even then, I'm still, I think it would make it. I think it would just make it in the landing. But I don't see any other way to get an IRC compliant window in a loft, unless you're going through the roof.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
and
it's skylight.
Yeah,
Skylight.
and they don't want to do skylights. Byron or Tracy said they don't want to do skylights, but they're saying but the landing, is that considered the loft? Then you'd have that argument. And what happens if you have a ship's ladder instead of a landing and stairs? I would be better saying that it would be at the bottom of the stairs or on the landing or at the bottom of the ship's ladder, the egress window.
I think the thought would be, though, if you can get to the bottom of the stairs, you probably can get to the main door.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally with you there. I'm just trying to say, if we said we don't want to put an egress window in the loft, they're going to say, no way, Jose. We got to have some kind of a secondary means of egress. So what's the argument going to be that what's the lobbying going to sound like when we're saying, yeah, okay, what if we said something like this? We as building code officials, authority having jurisdiction, interpret the loft as a built-in bunk bed, and therefore, according to IRC, there is no requirement for an egress in a built-in bunk bed. However, we as a body will require a egress, and that egress needs to be this size. would that work?
It, it could, it really
Could be an
depends on,
argument, but
it really depends on how they receive it or not.
yeah,
I think there's a fine line there.
yeah, well, it definitely is.
So here's another side to that though, is, so a typical bedroom, an IRC bedroom, I've never seen a bedroom without full walls and and a door. The lofts, they never close them completely off. They never wall it off, and they don't have a door. So I think that could go to help bolster what you're saying, Robin, is, you know, a loft is open. You have a visual of, you know, what's going on around you.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's one example. It's maybe not the best example, but there's one example of a loft. You know, there's another one here. I'm not a loft, but a built-in bunk bed. And there's no egress in those built-in bunk beds.
Right, because it's in the room that surrounded by walls and a door.
Right, exactly.
So wouldn't
So-
that be about the same thing though, Rich? Because it's, I mean, if it's opened and it's not closed in, it's still in an open room.
Well, that's where I'm trying to get to Robin's
Yeah.
point. I think we can use that as a conversation piece.
Yeah.
Like here's another one with some stairs going up to it, you know. And they don't have egresses. So yeah, the point, I guess the argument would be, or the argument, I don't like the word argument.
yeah, I think they did have, I think those do have egresses though.
Those lofts, those bunk beds?
Yeah, because there was windows on the side wall.
No, let me share it again. Those windows that you saw right here, they open down here. That if you're up in this bed, up in the top here,
Oh, I see what you're saying, but I don't think they would consider that as a loft or anything. Yeah, no,
no, that's a built-in, it's a bunk bed. It's not even a built-in. This is a piece of furniture. I'll go back to the other one that did have some built-in bunks. See, like this one here is a built-in bunk. I don't know if I can make
Right.
that bigger or not. But, you know, where they actually
is you
have a
gotta-
wall.
the thing is, we have to remember though, that their lofts, the wall height within the loft itself is really minimal. I mean, they're lucky on some sides, they're lucky that they get 36 inches on the high side on in
Yeah.
most of those lofts. So that's where they're really struggling.
Yeah, and if you put a window in, an egress window, and then put a header above that window, you know, 2x4 or 2x6 header, the height, an IRC is a compliant window is required to be 20 inches wide by 24 tall by 5.7, unless it's a ground floor, then it's 5.0 square feet, which is 820.8 square inches. So a 24-inch tall window, and then you add, you know, 3 inches for the top and bottom sash, you know, because it's 24 inches clear opening. So that's 27 inches. And then you add 6 inches for a header. You know, you're going to be hard pressed to in a lot of tiny houses to get that height of 7, and that's 33 inches. They're 33 inches right there. And if your loft is 36 inches, you know, I'm just saying it's not impossible, but especially when you have a gable, you know, where you have a loft that has, you know, a gable on it. You know, there's maybe that back wall, you could get something in there, but you still have to have headers and framing and all. I just feel like an IRC egress window is going to be problematic for some tiny houses the way they're built currently.
Absolutely, but you said that they are not happy with a skylight?
No, no, the builders aren't happy with the skylight. Because then you gotta have a stair and you gotta poke holes in the roof and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't,
Problematic. They're price expensive, they're limited supply. It's a chain of issues.
Their only other option is make the loft small enough that it's not considered habitable.
well, no, they're not gonna do that. They wanna sleep there. They wanna say this is where you sleep in a lot of tiny houses, so.
Oh, I knew that.
Nancy's got
Yeah,
her
but I-
hand raised.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask the inspectors a quick question about the lofts and how, how big they can be. So have you ever run across an instance where the pitch is so high that on the low end, there's 16 inches or less between the ceiling and the floor?
Yeah,
Because then it wouldn't be
Yeah.
counted in the square footage.
Well,
right.
it would be counted in the footage. Let me pull up Appendix Q here. And it's Appendix AQ in the 2021. Let me share my screen again. Figure out how to do that. Share screen, share. All right, I think it's close to the bottom, isn't it? Emergency escape. Where was it in here? Oh, I know what it was. With loft, we were talking about loft. What is a loft? Minimum area. Loft shall have a minimum floor area of not less than 35 square feet. Loft shall not be less than 5 feet in any direction. And the portion of the loft with a sloped ceiling measuring less than 3 feet from the finished floor is not going to be counted in that 35 square feet, except, here's the exception, where there's a gable roof with a minimum of, I gotta minimize you guys so I can read it. With gable with a minimum of 612, if it has a 612 pitch on it, then the portion of loft that's 16 inches can count toward that 35 square feet. Does that make sense, Nancy?
Yeah, I thought if it was 16 or less, it did not count, and therefore the loft could be bigger and still qualify as a bunk according to IRC.
And I think Nancy's right though. When you, the same thing with the shed style roof. Anything less than 3 feet high is not counted in the, is not supposed to be counted in the square footage. And
Right.
And the same thing with the gable roof. Anything on the sides, you come in 16 inches high, and that's your mark to start as far as your square footage.
Correct.
Less than 16 inches is not usable. So, and in most of our lofts, if you really look at the height of the loft, most of our lofts that we see in the tiny houses now, most of them using that 3 foot rule, the 36-inch rule, and using the 16-inch rule, most of them don't even meet the square footage for a habitable loft.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's interesting, because every tiny house that's going to be considered habitable has to have cooking facility, sanitation, and sleeping facility. So if the only sleeping facility is a loft and the loft doesn't meet the definition of a sleeping loft, then it doesn't have a bedroom and can't be lived in.
Well, if you look at the ones that Kevin West does, those on those skid homes, they don't have a loft and they don't have a bedroom. There is a living area, and they put in a sort of a like a sleeping sofa in that living
Yeah.
area. And then of course they have to have that proper egress though.
So the living area is considered the bedroom or the sleeping area.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
So
It
wouldn't
has
that
to
be the same thing like a studio? I mean,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but that room, the minimum size is going to be 70 square feet. And the shortest wall can be no less than 7 square feet. Is that right, Rich? Is that how they play it out there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
To be a habitable room, it has to be at least 70 square feet and no wall less than 7 square feet.
Yep.
So these guys that are building, like in between the tires, tiny houses, they don't have any, their walls are going to be less than 7 square feet. So there's no way they can get a habitable unit out of something like that. They have to be about, 8 foot wide, because you take it 8 foot wide and take 8 inches off of it, that's 7'4" width. So that would make it to 7 feet, and then a 7 by 10 would make that room. But yeah, that would work, Tony. But I'm just saying, when they don't have a bedroom downstairs or what they call a studio, if they are considering that loft a sleeping area, it needs to meet the 35 square feet.
Yes, but I managed to wind up with 2 son and wives cards.
I thought you'd already gotten one, but I didn't say anything because we've gotten so many, I'm losing track. Well, now you'll have one next year.
Jordan, can you mute T
So
with
that's perfect.
Stanley? Or T with Stanley, could you mute your mic, please? There you go. Thank you so much. All right. So what did we decide?
Oh, well, here's another thing is, I only really see 2 options from our discussion. Is one is, if it's possible, if they'll agree to it, use the single anti-standard for the egress window for a loft, if that's a consideration. Or number 2 would be require a landing, and even if there's a stair or a ship ladder, and at that landing, a full-size IRC compliant egress. The points can be made with both of those designs to that, lofts are open. We have never run across a loft that's closed off. So if there was an incident, an issue with fire or whatever it may be, they needed to escape, either one of those would be more than sufficient.
The thing is, though, with the lofts themselves, just the lofts themselves, the builder or whoever can just simply say that is a storage area, and there wouldn't really be anything much that we could do about it if it was under the 35 square feet. And because they are a tiny house, and if as long as they have a living area, we have to assume then that would be their sleeping area.
Yeah, we could certainly do that. And if it's less than 35 square feet, then it wouldn't be considered. But what if it is 35 square feet and it is going to be used as a sleeping loft?
Yeah,
What
then-
we're talking about is, what do we do then? Well, here's a third.
Go ahead.
Here's a third option, Rich. What do you think about increasing the size of the RV egress a little bit and make it my suggestion would be 21 inches tall, 27 inches wide.
If it's a common size window, yes. You know what I mean? If that window size is readily available at, from all the major manufacturers, then yeah, I mean, that could definitely be an option.
That would be a 24 by 30 rough opening, which would be a 2 foot by 2'6" window, casement or awning window.
Yeah, the awning windows is going to be really their easier way to go to get in there, to get what they need.
Yeah, I would say somebody has to check on that size and see if it's a real option or not. You know, stock option, put it that way. Because if it's not
Yeah,
stock,
right.
special order. thing.
Kevin,
Yeah.
again, back to Kevin West. That's, I have to find out exactly from him, but that's what he uses in all his lofts is the awning style window, and it exceeds the ANSI minimum. I don't remember exactly what the size of it is, but it is pretty good size. And because it is the awning style window, it's hinged at the top. So it does have the full opening once she opens up.
Right, with the breakaway hardware and everything.
Right, right.
Yeah, okay. No. All right, well, I think that's what I'll kind of lean in the direction of is instead of going with an IRC 5.7 square feet, 20 by 24, if we could go with a clear opening of 21 by 27, would that be acceptable to the, because somebody said on the call that the reason for the IRC window was to get a big enough opening for some firefighter to get in with full gear. And what's 21 by 27?
567.
567, and the normal egress window is 820.
Yeah, it's 3.9 square feet.
What if we did 4.0 square feet or something, you know, go from,
Right. Yeah,
because they'll do a 5.0 on a ground floor. If we just said, okay, what if we just reduced the measurements to, you know, a minimum of a clear opening of 21 inches high and 27 inches wide and 4.0 square feet, you know, if we came up with that window as an egress out of a loft.
Now, is this specifically for Colorado?
for now.
But yeah, but Colorado is going to be the standard for most of the states. They're all going, Texas is already looking at Colorado as to what they're doing. Here's a question for everyone. Can we do that? Can we actually reduce the size of an egress window legally? But seeing that, you know, IRC, if they're going to take IRC, you have to have the 5.7 according to IRC. Can a body, an authority having jurisdiction reduce the size of the egress window?
Well, I would say yes, because they're not going to have, you know, they're not going to have full IRC. They're going to cherry pick a lot from the IRC, but they're not going to be able to be fully compliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, they're going to use some other standards at some point, or some other measurements or something like that. And I know they made that clear in the one call that I was on, was you know, they can do pretty much whatever they, you know, whatever the consensus of the body is to do. That's right. So they have
Right.
the ability. But you know, the other problem, or the other concern is, you know, I know they were talking about, and this is secondary, I shouldn't really be going into this, but you know, they were talking about the roof and the R49 insulation. So that may throw a little bit of an issue back into it, or not. I mean, maybe they're going to force everybody to have to go to spray foam, and that's it.
Even
Yeah,
going to spray
yeah.
foam, they're going to have to increase the rafter
Well,
size.
they've settled on R38 by the end
Oh, they
of the
did?
call. They had settled on R38, which is 5 and a 2x6 fully filled with closed cell
Fully
spray
filled.
foam.
Right.
That's an R38.
Perfect.
So that's what they settled on. But then they didn't put it in concrete. They said, you know, this is what we're thinking. And somebody said, I think it was Nate, said that he thinks rather than doing some calculations and the DIY is not going to do I forgot what they called it, Rich, but you were on the call. They called it something
Doing the res-
that prescriptive is going to be better. Yeah, what is it called?
They were looking to do a res check. So it's basically
A
just
res
you know, showing how efficient the house would be above code, or above, you know, whatever standard they decide is code. And I mean, all of that insulation and in a tiny house is gonna be way above the normal, what that house would need for energy compliance. There's no
So a
doubt.
res check might be what we would want to use.
I'm not a huge, I mean, maybe for an initial understanding of the insulation values that are needed, but as far as requiring a res check house, I'm not a fan of it. Because legally or technically by the IRC or by the energy code, that res check is required to be completed by a design professional.
Okay. What if
You
we
know, it's-
took a design professional, which I have some engineers that I can talk with about this that are into tiny houses. What if we had them do a res check, which is a calculation on a tiny house that has R21 in the ceiling and R5 in the walls, and I guess with so much square footage of windows and stuff like that. What if they did a res check on that, and if it came out fine, then they said they could make a prescriptive, or maybe R28. I'd like to get the ceiling down from R38 if we could, but I'm okay with R38 if we have to go with that.
Try it with R30 in the ceiling. Because I mean, I mentioned this in that one call was, Pennsylvania is zone 5 there now, and we're zone. We started off at R30 when the code first came out, and then we bumped up to R38, and now we're at R49. So, I mean, it may be a progressive step to start minimal and work your way up. Because the IRC is built on the mandate that it is a minimum code. So if they're going to base it off the IRC, then let's start with the minimums. Let's get something that's effective, and they can improve upon it after that.
Well, if we do with R30, can they still reach that without having to go to closed cell spray foam?
If they go with 2x6, they can.
2x6, what do they use
2x6
to get R30? All right, so they got a 2x6. Fiberglass isn't going to make it.
No, they'd have to go spray foam, 4 inches of it.
Yeah.
Well, if they got to go spray foam, then we might as well stick with the R38 because a 2x6 will make that.
Yeah.
How about open cell? It's R5. So
Not gonna get that.
5 times 5 is 25, and a half of that be 27 and a half. So that would open cell spray foam 5 1/4 inches or 5 1/2 would be R27, and Blaine County went with R28. I'm just saying if we're going to push for something less than R38, what are we gaining by getting an R30? Not that much. We're not gaining fiberglass. They're still going to have to do closed cell spray foam. They just have to do a little bit less.
I would say, Robin, have your designer run it on what we currently require. The R13, the R15, the R20, or R19, I'm sorry. And then and see where that's at. And then, maybe see where that's at. And if the numbers are showing it passing with a good percentage, present that as an option.
Okay.
Because for the numbers, you can't, you can manipulate them to the point where, windows and all that mean a difference. But other than that, you can't manipulate them beyond that. And
Right.
Don't get me, anybody can fill out a res check. I could fill out a res check. It's not a big, you just got to know the orientation of everything. But legally, under the energy code, it's supposed to be done by a design professional and submitted to AHJ.
A design professional meaning an engineer
Or an architect.
or an architect. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Okay,
Somebody's
we
got
do
a
have
question.
some questions. Yeah, we do have several questions. He has 2 questions. One is, we certify a cargo van conversion. What document do I receive so I can insure as an RV for full improved value? His second one is to do with the panic bar fire egress modular convenience store.
I already answered the first one in the chat, Sherry.
Yeah, I was getting ready to read that.
Oh, okay.
What did she say?
NOAA will issue a seal and a certificate of compliance and completion. The certificate has a statement of conformity listing the codes and or standards the home was inspected to. We do
Okay.
that.
Certified cargo van conversion, yeah. Okay, yeah, and it would be considered an RV at that point,
Yes.
not a
Um,
dwelling.
Sharon said, I object to using spray foam at all, so would hate to see this required.
Yeah, and I understand that feeling. Unfortunately, I think it's out of our control at this point. I think they're set on their numbers, and the part is going to be for the builder to achieve that number, however they can.
Yeah, I was going to say, if they have another option that they can achieve those numbers, then that's good.
Yeah, because the code, that's how the code is written, is the energy code is written, you know, you need X for the floor, Y for the walls, and Z for the roof. It's up to you how you achieve it.
Right.
On a tiny house, you know, space is of very much importance. So I don't know.
And Phil says, is that R value you're talking about factor in the tightness of the air envelope? With a loose building, the R value doesn't matter as much.
It wouldn't
I
factor
don't think
in
it's gonna matter at all.
of a unit at all.
Yeah.
Although in reality it does though, you know, if it's real tight. But according to the standards and codes.
Yeah, and that was another topic they discussed was, are they going to require blower door tests?
Right.
So, you know, it may get.
I think at least me and you, Rich, are gonna lobby for no blower door test, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
There's no way.
yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Now, the other thing that they, you know, when Rich says they can modify the code, they call it making amendments to the building code. They did talk about making an amendment to Appendix 2. Hello.
Sorry.
Dinner's ready.
They were talking about the landing, that according to IRC, the landing has to be between 16 and 18 inches from the loft. And they said that in the original language, it was 24. And I had put together the calculations showing that at 18 inches, you couldn't meet the 6'2" headroom requirements in a tiny house. And so they, I think, decided to go ahead and make it 24 inches from the landing, 16 to 24 inches from the landing to the loft, and still hold the people to the 6'2" headroom on the landing. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Rich?
For that. And you know what, that just goes to kind of bolster the point of the possibility of an egress window. Because if an egress window is going to be that much, the landing's going to be that much deeper, you know, the option's there.
Right.
If, you know, as a later option.
But are
Yeah.
we talking, I don't know, maybe I'm getting lost here. Are we talking about a standard that we're trying to establish that all the tiny houses are going to have to meet, no matter where you're located?
All of them in Colorado would have to meet that.
Oh, in Colorado. Okay, yeah. Because if
And
But
then the
other
other-
states are looking, Tony, other states are looking at Colorado's development of the standard for tiny homes. So it could
Right.
be a possibility. It would be other states as well.
Because I think
Yeah.
as far as the tiny house industry goes, I think if we go back to our builders and as you know, blanket that all tiny houses are going to have an R38 in the ceiling and all the other things, as far as even the egress windows and stuff, I think you're going to have a lot of builders dropping off because they're just not going to want to do it.
Well,
Especially a number of DIYers too.
Yes
Yeah.
and no. They might just go longer and put the bedroom on a first floor and not have a loft bedroom.
No, they may do
Uh,
that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the ones that truly, developed a program and process for their tiny houses, they're gonna adapt and overcome. But yeah, you're right. Some of the DIYers, they're gonna have to have a very fast learning curve.
Yeah, I think a lot of builders are trouble. You have to remember, if they have to reach like an R38 in a ceiling, just hypothetically, they're going to wind up having to use spray foam. And the cost of spray foam, as they've been telling me now, is becoming astronomical. And it's going to raise the cost, the builder's cost much higher. So of course they got to pass that on to the buyer. I think we're going to have a lot of problem with that.
well, here's the deal, guys, and Mo pointed out very, very, very strongly on the call. He said, and he's the one in charge of that. He said, we are not touching the RV industry. You can still build tiny houses to the RV standard, but if you want to live in them full time, then you're going to have to meet the IRC standard.
Yeah, so
But we
they'll
can
still
make it-
allow
Yeah.
fancy
Yeah.
product. It's a matter of they just won't allow it as a full-time, habitable unit. They'll, RV park or something like that, recreational, I don't know, recreational zoning or something. That's it though.
Yeah.
Eric says he has a photo of a commercial building to share.
Yeah, Rob,
Share away.
I mentioned this to you before. So we're offsite builders, build with SIP panels and all that. And I have a deal with this tiny convenience store. These are going to be automated, tellerless, a lot of technology in them. So you authorize your credit card to get inside. We have one door, and it's basically a 12 by 16 internal footprint convenience store that can be dropped in apartment parking lots, what have you. But I've got one door going in, and obviously a lot of automation with mag strikes to let them in and out, but you can't lock people in a building. They got to have those panic bars to get out. And when you're dealing with something that's electrified and all, that gets a little complicated. I mean, would you agree that this still has to have a push button escape bar to get out that front door? There's only one door in and out.
Yeah, I think the fire department, fire code would absolutely require that.
100% between fire code and the building code.
And wouldn't ADA as well? I mean,
broke
with it
up
being
a
a
lot.
commercial, wouldn't ADA? It
Yeah,
have to be
yeah.
ADA approved,
Yeah,
Right.
definitely ADA, no threshold, ramp, all that.
right?
We're just trying to meter obviously you don't want the thing to lose power and get locked inside or burn up. At the same time, there's a lot of automation to deal with security and theft and whatnot. But even if
Yeah.
somebody's breaking out and stealing your stuff, you can't lock them in your building, really. I mean, you could, but not an automated one. It'd be like a giant mouse trap, right?
Is this going to be on skids or on
Unfortunately.
wheels?
Skids.
Skids, okay.
Okay.
All right, cool project.
Phil also says I'm building with zips, SIPS. So I'll need a 14-inch roof panel, nuts.
Don't
Yeah,
disagree.
he's right. He's right. Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeremy, to clarify, if I'm on main floor, does it have to be 70 square foot or can it be 35 square foot if bed is raised, say, to 30 inches?
The 70 square foot that we were discussing was from the IRC. That's not right now. That's not in effect at all. As far as I understand. So yeah, that's just you that we're discussing with this whole change coming up.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you know, I think
but
we
with-
discussed one, didn't we discussed one time before that the different municipalities, the different states and so forth, if a builder is, or even if it's a DIY, or if they're gonna be placing their home in that particular state, that particular city or whatever, we discussed before that they're gonna have to build that to the codes that are applicable to that particular state. Like we have Hawaii. Hawaii does not even insulate their floors
Yeah,
because they're in Hawaii. Yeah,
Right.
because it's required by Hawaii to do that. So if, you know, so
yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. That would be correct only if you're building to the building code for that state. However, if you're building a RV, then it meets the RV requirements. It would need to meet the RV requirements. And in NFPA 1192, there is no insulation requirements.
right, minimal, yeah.
In ANSI 119.5, there is a R5 in the walls and floors and R7 in the ceiling. So, yeah. Oh, and the other thing, while we're on that same topic, guys, the question was, can it be 35 square feet if the bed is raised to 30 inches? What they do is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they consider it would have to be a loft, and they consider a loft that would have less than 5 feet. Is that the number, 5 feet in ceiling height?
I think so.
So if you're, it doesn't matter how far off the ground, off the floor you come, that, you know, if you're 30 inches off the floor, if you have more than 5 feet in ceiling height, then it would have to be 70 square feet. If it's less than 5 feet in ceiling height, then it could be 35. I think that's how they're playing it out.
Okay, Eric also said the commercial zip builds, and we just run a comms check. Energy Stars program offers builders a $2,500 check to builders for each home built, trying to find out if a 300 to 400 square foot tiny on foundation applies.
That would be fruitful. That'd be very helpful if they did. I mean, phew.
What is a
Yeah.
comms check? I'm not sure what a comms check is.
Check is the same thing as a res check, except res check is meant for residential, com is meant for commercial.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they have.
And it's
you know, like-
$2,500 to do that.
No, he's saying they get a $2,500 rebate, I believe it was.
Yeah, it's a rebate. There's some costs involved with ensuring that you're compliant, but it's less than 2,500.
Yeah,
I just haven't pressured them on doing how do you define a home?
so on one unrelated topic, I know I sent out an email, I just want to clarify. The tiny house builder in Panama, he's looking to have his interior floor space under 400 square feet, but some of the exterior projections will be over 400 square feet. We'll make the whole unit over 400 square feet. Is that something that's, from what I understand, what I recall, everything, that's okay and it still makes it compliant? Guys, what do you say?
I know that in the ANSI, which is where and it has to be less than 400, 399.99 in ANSI, they will allow projections of a bay window not to have to be calculated into that price, into that square footage. So I don't know what kind of projections he's talking about, but if it's like a bay window projection, then I could see where we could interpret it as, you know, the size of the trailer is, or whatever, is less than 400, but with this bay window or whatever, it goes over, that he would still be in compliant with the ANSI standard.
Yeah, but I think also too, though, and ANSI figures the actual footprint of it, not the interior, but
Right,
the exterior footprint of the,
correct.
yeah.
So, all right, yeah, because he's looking to do a front porch or possibly a front and rear porch.
You can do that.
Yeah,
Porches
yeah.
aren't included in the square footage. Porches and
porch.
lofts are not included.
Porch or like a roof overhang or something, okay. Like a
That's
roof
fine.
overhang.
Yeah,
Alright,
that's
okay.
fine.
All right.
Anybody
All
else
right,
have questions?
Well, guys, it's been real,
Yes.
as usual.
It's always real.
I'm I'm
Thanks
always
for-
amazed at how, you know, we can talk for an hour. We had nothing to talk about. We get on here and talk for an hour about nothing.
Yeah,
So. So.
And they say
anyway.
women are bad. I'm just throwing that out there.
uh,
All right,
All right.
if we have nothing else, I will turn it back over to Robin and he can close us out.
All right, sounds good, sounds good. Thanks for coming, everybody. Just a reminder, we will not have a Wednesday night session next Wednesday, Wednesday before and the Wednesday after Christmas. Scott is not going to be available, so our tiny house development of communities talk will be resumed. I guess it's January, be resuming in January. And we only have like 2 more talks on that one, and we'll have a complete package so that you can get a copy of that, of those videos and be able to take it from how do I acquire the land to how do I get to the point where I'm selling or renting units. So that's a real interesting talk that we're having on Wednesday nights. Other than that, on a Monday, I believe we're going to have Tracy Baker from what we were talking about was the Colorado committee, the TAC committee. She is Tiny House Experts, and she is on that TAC committee from Colorado, and she's going to show us. She says she's got a tiny house that's framed up, another one that's nearing completion, and another one that's almost complete. And she's going to take us around those and show us their shops. On Mondays, we have a fun time with builders, you know, seeing how they do things, you know, and that kind of stuff. So that'll be Monday. And other than that, I'm going to say goodbye, good night, and have a great evening or whatever it is from wherever you are, Jordan.
All right, thank you,
All
guys.
right, goodbye, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
everybody.